I step through the front door of my childhood home, the familiar scent of cinnamon and pine mingling in the air. My heels click against the hardwood floor, a sound that once meant coming home. The black cocktail dress I chose fits perfectly simple, elegant, appropriate for Christmas Eve with family, my family. The word catches in my throat. Marissa, you made it. Dad's voice lacks warmth despite the crackling fire in the living room hearth. He takes my coat with mechanical politeness, hanging it without meeting my eyes. The house gleams with holiday perfection. Garland draped across the staircase, vintage glass ornaments catching light from the bay window. Mom's collection of nutcrackers standing at attention on the mantel, exactly as they've been arranged for 30 years. I move toward the living room, past the family photos lining the hallway, then stop cold. Above the fireplace hangs an enormous new portrait, at least 3 feet wide, in an ornate gold frame. Mom, Dad, and Brielle beam at the camera, posed against a backdrop of autumn leaves. 3 faces where there should be 4. Do you like it? Mom appears at my elbow, glass of Cabernet in hand. We had it done in October, at Parkview Gardens. The photographer was just marvelous. My lungs constrict. The portrait isn't awkwardly cropped or hastily edited. It was planned without me. They drove to the gardens, coordinated their outfits in complementary earth tones, smiled for the camera, and never once picked up the phone to include me. Beautiful. The word scrapes my throat. Mom pats my arm and drifts away, leaving me staring at the physical manifestation of what I've always known but never wanted to confirm. I am an afterthought. A footnote. The child who doesn't quite fit the family portrait. Present time. Brielle's voice cuts through my thoughts. At 26, my sister still squeals about gifts like a child, clapping as she kneels beside the Christmas tree. We gather in the living room, perching on furniture arranged to showcase the 10-foot Fraser fir that Dad always insists on, despite its ridiculous proportions for their modest living room. Ornaments from 5 decades glitter among the branches, me, kindergarten clothespin reindeer, hanging near the bottom, practically hidden behind a branch. Dad distributes gifts with ceremonial precision. Brielle, this one's for you. Karen, for you, dear. Marissa, here. The package in my hands is lightweight, wrapped in what appears to be leftover birthday paper, the corners hastily folded. I carefully remove the tape while Brielle tears through expensive gold wrapping on a large box. Inside my package, a navy blue knit beanie, with the price tag still attached, $12.99, from the mall kiosk I'd passed on my way here. Oh my God, you didn't! Brielle's shriek draws everyone's attention as she pulls out a caramel-colored leather handbag, the designer logo prominently displayed. I can't believe you got me the Marcella tote. It's $1,500. Mom beams. You deserve something special, sweetheart. I run my finger over the scratchy acrylic of my new hat, trying to ignore the burning behind my eyes. Try it on, Marissa. Dad gestures toward my beanie without actually looking at me. I pull it over my carefully styled hair. Thanks. No one notices the tremor in my voice. My mind flashes back to the day my acceptance letter arrived from Colorado's architecture program. I burst through the front door, waving the envelope, heart pounding with pride. That's wonderful, honey, Mom had said, barely glancing up from her magazine. But you know we can't help with tuition. The timing is just bad with the market the way it is. 3 months later, they threw Brielle a lavish going-away party before her semester abroad in Florence. It's an investment in her future, Dad had explained while handing her a new credit card. Art requires immersion. I worked night shifts at the campus coffee shop, fell asleep during morning lectures, and graduated anyway. Dinner's ready, Mom announces, breaking my reverie. We migrate to the dining room, where Brielle immediately launches into a detailed account of her latest gallery showing. The curator said my use of negative space was revolutionary, she explains, gesturing with her wine glass. He's considering featuring the spring showcase. Mom and Dad lean forward, entranced by her every word. I pick at my turkey, waiting for a natural pause. I signed a contract with Westridge Properties last week, I finally say. They want me to redesign their entire downtown office complex. Dad nods vaguely. Mom glances at me, then turns back to Brielle. That's nice, dear, but did you hear about Brielle's piece that sold to that Silicon Valley executive? Tell her about it, Brie. I look at their faces animated as they gaze at my sister, distant when they turn to Mia and suddenly understand with perfect clarity. The misset isn't the first time they've erased me. It's just the first time they've been honest about it. Have you ever noticed the moment when you became invisible to the very people who should see you most clearly? For me, it wasn't the missing face in the portrait, it was the missing place in their hearts. I spread my rental application across my kitchen table, squinting at the small print that will determine if I can upgrade from this one-bedroom apartment with the leaky bathroom faucet. 6 years out of college, and I'm still pinching pennies. The security deposit alone is 3 weeks of careful budgeting. My phone buzzes. Unknown number. Marissa Morgan speaking. Miss Morgan? This is Rebecca Winters from the Southbridge County Records Office. Her voice carries the official tone of someone who spends her days surrounded by paperwork. I'm calling about your property tax assessment. I think you have the wrong person. I tuck the phone between my ear and shoulder, continuing to fill in my monthly income on the rental form. You are Marissa Eleanor Morgan? Social Security ending in 4,738? My pen pauses. Yes, but according to our records, you've owned the property at 247 Maple Street in Southbridge for nearly 6 years now. We're updating tax records and noticed some inconsistencies. The rental application blurs before me. It's impossible. I don't own property anywhere. Ma'am, I'm looking at the deed transfer dated May 12, 2018. Transferred from the estate of Alvin Morgan to Marissa E. Morgan. Grandpa Alvin, my father's father. The man who taught me to build birdhouses when I was 8. The man whose funeral I stood at alone while my parents and Brielle arrived fashionably late. There must be a mistake, I say, but my voice lacks conviction. You might want to come down to our office. Bring identification. 3 hours later, I sit surrounded by property documents in a windowless room at the county clerk's office. My grandfather's will rests open before me, his familiar handwriting on the self-prepared attachment. To my granddaughter Marissa, I leave my home at 247 Maple Street, knowing she alone will appreciate its bones and history. As you can see, Rebecca says, sliding another document across the table, the property has been continuously rented since your grandfather's passing. Standard rate for the neighborhood, $2,400 monthly. The rental ledger shows 72 consecutive months of payments. I do the math quickly. $172,800. Who's been collecting the rent? Rebecca taps another document. The property manager, Gerald Morgan. My father. My father, who 6 years ago told me Grandpa had left just a few keepsakes to be divided among the family. My father, whose signature appears on every rental agreement, every maintenance receipt. My father, who makes a 15% management fee on every payment. Who has been cashing checks for over $140,000 that should have been mine. The betrayal sits like ice in my stomach. Miss Morgan, are you all right? Fine, I whisper, though I'm anything but. My mind races back to Grandpa's funeral. Mom pulling Dad aside, her whispered words carrying in the empty funeral home. She doesn't need to know everything. The pieces click into place like a door locking shut. 6 years ago, Brielle's cramped apartment suddenly underwent a mysterious renovation. New hardwood floors, custom lighting fixtures, that ridiculous soaking tub she couldn't stop bragging about. Mom and Dad's sudden decision to remodel their kitchen with granite countertops. The spring break trip to Aspen where I wasn't invited because it was last minute and we didn't think you could get away from work. All funded with my inheritance. Your grandfather was very clear about his wishes, Marissa. Margaret Hollis's silver hair catches the afternoon light streaming through her office window. She was my grandfather's attorney and, apparently, the executor of his will. He wanted you to have security. Then why didn't you make sure I got it? My voice cracks with the question I've been holding since discovering the truth 3 days ago. Margaret removes her glasses, rubbing the bridge of her nose. The will was properly filed with the court. The deed transfer was recorded. Your father presented power of attorney documentation. She sighs. It wasn't until the county's audit that the discrepancy was noticed. Discrepancy, I repeat. Is that what we're calling theft now? Legally speaking, your father had authority to manage the property, but not to withhold its existence from you. Her eyes sharpen. The question is, what do you want to do about it? I think about my family's portrait hanging above the fireplace. The one I'm not in. The deliberate erasure of my existence, mirroring the erasure of my inheritance. Everything I say. I want everything they took from me. Margaret nods, a small smile forming. Then let's get to work. My apartment walls become a crime scene. Bank statements printed and highlighted. Property records taped in chronological order. Tax documents showing deductions my father claimed for property improvements. In the center, I pin a photo I found online my parents at a beachfront resort in Cancun, dated 2 weeks after they cashed the third rental payment. Next to it, a receipt for Brielle's artist retreat in Santa Fe, paid directly from the property management account. Below these, my own calendar from those years' double shifts at the campus coffee shop, the night I fell asleep in the library because I couldn't afford both rent and textbooks that month. The graduation ceremony where I wore a borrowed dress. The mounting evidence makes me dizzy. Each document a knife. What hurts more? The loss of money, or the realization that my family saw me as unworthy of honesty? Would I confront the betrayal head-on, or walk away from both the money and the pain? I trace my finger over my grandfather's signature on the will. His final act was to provide for me, knowing perhaps better than I did how much I would need protection not from the world, but from my own family. To walk away would betray him twice. I reach for my phone. The ivory envelope sits on my kitchen table, a stark contrast to the scattered documents covering my apartment walls. 6 years of betrayal laid out in chronological order: property deeds, bank statements, rental agreements, my inheritance, stolen by the people who should have protected it. I hover my hand over my phone. One call could end this. I could walk away, start fresh somewhere they'd never find me. Forget the money, forget the betrayal, forget them. The photo of me at 19 stares back from the wall. Dark circles under my eyes after a double shift at the campus coffee shop, textbooks spread around me. Pinned beside it, a Facebook post from the same week. Mom, Dad, and Brielle, smiling on the slopes in Aspen. The timestamp matches a $4,200 withdrawal from my property's management account. Grandfather's voice echoes in my memory. You've got vision, Marissa. You see what could be, not just what is. He believed in me when no one else did. My finger falls away from the phone. Some inheritances aren't meant to be abandoned. You can stay here as long as you need. Jackson hands me a mug of coffee, steam curling between us and his family's guest room. Mom's already talking about making you her special Christmas pancakes tomorrow. I shouldn't impose. The words come automatically, though I've nowhere else to go. Christmas Eve with strangers feels less lonely than the silent apartment I left behind. Jackson sits beside me, careful not to disturb the papers spread across the bed. You're not imposing. And this, he gestures to the documents, this isn't just about money. You know that, right? I nod, the tightness in my throat making speech impossible. Family isn't supposed to do this, he says, examining a bank statement. My mom would sell both kidneys before taking a dime from me. The contrast hits me like a physical blow. I've spent years trying to be worthy of people who never saw my worth at all. Tell me again what you'll say. Margaret Hollis adjusts her wire-rimmed glasses, her silver hair catching the afternoon light in her office. I'll place the envelope on the table and say, I think it's time we discussed my inheritance. My voice sounds steadier than it feels. Good. Direct, but not aggressive. She slides the property transfer documents across her desk. Remember, We don't just want the property back. We want acknowledgement of what they've done. I practiced the words again, tasting their unfamiliar power. For 30 years, I've swallowed hurt, disappointment, rejection. Tomorrow, they'll be the ones swallowing hard. Your grandfather believed in dignity, Marissa. Margaret's eyes soften. He wouldn't want rage. He'd want truth. I nod, remembering his quiet strength. Christmas morning, they'll all be there, comfortable, surrounded by their gifts. Perfect timing. She places the final notarized document in the envelope. Let them have their last happy Christmas breakfast on your dime. Mrs. Winters had pressed a thermos into my hands before I left my apartment building this evening. Something stronger than cocoa, dear. Dutch courage. The whiskey-laced hot chocolate warms my hands now as I sit in my car across from my parents' house. Through the living room window, I watch them laughing, opening expensive gifts, utterly unaware of what tomorrow will bring. Dad hands Mom a small wrapped box jewelry based on her reaction. The scene looks perfect from outside, like one of those Christmas commercials featuring happy families gathered around a glowing tree. My phone buzzes with a text from Elaine. You've got this. Remember who they are. Remember who you are. I set down the thermos and pick up the ivory envelope. My fingers trace the expensive paper, Margaret's choice, not mine. Documents this important deserve proper presentation, she'd said. For years, I've measured my worth through their eyes, finding myself perpetually lacking. Tonight, watching them through the window, I realize I've been using a broken yardstick. I don't need their approval anymore. The morning sun glints off fresh snow as I park in front of the house. Christmas Day, 9:30 a.m. Through the dining room window, I can see them gathered for breakfast, Mom's traditional cinnamon rolls and mimosas. The ivory envelope feels almost weightless in my hand as I walk up the shoveled path. My heels no longer click with uncertainty. Each step lands with purpose. I don't knock. I still have a key, though they've probably forgotten. The house smells of cinnamon and coffee essence that once meant comfort, now just stage dressing for the scene about to unfold. Their conversation stops when I appear in the dining room doorway. My posture has changed, spine straight, shoulders back, chin level. Not the Marissa they're used to seeing. Oh, Marissa. Mom's voice rises with surprise. We weren't expecting you today after… Well, you left so suddenly yesterday. There's plenty for breakfast if you'd like to join. Her nervous chatter dies as I approach the table without responding. Dad's coffee cup freezes halfway to his mouth. Brielle's eyes narrow, sensing something unfamiliar in my demeanor. I place the ivory envelope in the center of the table, my movements deliberate and calm. The room falls silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway fitting, somehow. Merry Christmas. My voice doesn't waver. I think it's time we discussed my inheritance. The color drains from Dad's face as he stares at the envelope. Mom's smile flickers, then fails completely. Brielle looks between them, confusion giving way to the first hints of alarm. I remain standing, unwilling to cede even the small power of height. The family that had made me feel small will learn today that silence doesn't mean weakness sometimes. It means someone is gathering their strength. The ivory envelope sits in the center of our breakfast table like a bomb waiting to detonate. Dad's coffee mug freezes halfway to his mouth when I place it there. Mom's spatula stills over the frying pan. What's this? Dad finally asks, his voice carrying the false cheer that's always preceded uncomfortable family discussions. Open it. My voice sounds different to my own ears, steady, certain. The room stills as Dad reaches for the envelope. His fingers tremble slightly, something I've never seen before. Gerald Morgan, whose hands built decks and installed ceiling fans with surgical precision, now fumbles with a simple paper flap. He slides out the documents, and the color drains from his face in slow motion, as if someone turned a spigot at the crown of his head. Mom reaches over. Gerald, what is… The words die on her lips as she scans the property records. 3 decades of practiced composure crumble in seconds. Brielle glances between them, confusion etched on her face. What? What is it? She snatches a paper from Mom's limp fingers, eyes widening as understanding dawns. This can't be right. It's exactly right, I say, watching decades of lies collapse under the weight of county records, bank statements, and grandfather Alvin's signature on a will they hoped I'd never discover. The silence stretches between us, thick and suffocating. The ticking of Mom's vintage kitchen clock marks the seconds of their calculated betrayal. Dad recovers first, straightening his shoulders. Marissa, this was always for the family. Your grandfather's house became an investment for all of us. For all of us? I slide another document across the table photos from their Aspen trip 3 winters ago. Did my inheritance pay for lessons too? Next comes a credit card statement. Or Brielle's emergency apartment renovation. Mom's hand flutters to her throat. We were going to surprise you with it eventually. A laugh escapes me, sharp and unfamiliar. After 5 years and $144,000 in rental income, that's quite the delayed surprise. You're trying to destroy this family over money? Brielle's voice rises, her perfect features contorting in panic. After everything they've done for you? Everything they've done? I tap the rental agreement with Dad's signature as property manager. Let's discuss exactly what they've done. I slide forward bank statements showing systematic transfers. Monthly rental income into your account, Dad. Then magically appearing as payments toward Brielle's credit card. My art school sister who somehow affords a downtown loft on gallery commissions. Mom's tears fall, now genuine ones, not the performative drops she shed when I announced I couldn't attend Brielle's gallery opening because I was working double shifts. These records must be mistaken. Dad's voice hardens as he shuffles through papers. That will wasn't properly executed. Your grandfather was already unwell. I witnessed that will myself, Mr. Morgan. They jolt at the new voice. Attorney Margaret Hollis steps in from the hallway where she's been waiting, her silver hair and pressed charcoal suit lending authority to her words. Alvin Morgan was of sound mind when he left that property to his granddaughter. He was also quite specific about his reasons. She places her leather portfolio on the table. He wanted Marissa to have security that our parent's exact words couldn't compromise. Dad's face reddens. You can't just walk in here and... I've walked in here with a court order. I slide the final papers across the table. Transfer of property management effective immediately. The rental income transfers to my account starting today. The implications hit them in waves. Dad's jaw slackens. Mom grips the back of a chair. Brielle's eyes dart between them. But the rent pays for my apartment, Belle whispers. And the property taxes on this house, Mom adds, voice trembling. Dad looks at me, truly sees me for perhaps the first time in years. Marissa, you can't possibly. I already have. I stand, gathering the copies of documents I brought for them. I'm not just taking back the house. I'm taking back my life. We're your family, Mom pleads, reaching for my hand. I step away from her touch. Family doesn't steal from family. Family doesn't erase family from portraits. Understanding flickers in her eye as she knows exactly which portrait I mean. We can work something out, Dad attempts, businessman to the end. A payment plan, perhaps. The rent covers the mortgage with about $800 left each month, I say. Over 5 years, that's $48,000 you've spent. The additional $96,000 came from remortgaging my property to fund Brielle's Florence semester and your kitchen renovation. I zip my portfolio closed. Attorney Hollis has the paperwork if you'd like to arrange repayment terms. Brielle collapses into a chair. I can't afford my own place. Funny, I say. Neither could I. For 5 years. I walk toward the door, Attorney Hollis beside me. The weight of their stares presses against my back, but my spine remains straight. Marissa. Dad's voice stops me at the threshold. We're still your parents. I turn back one last time. Biology isn't a blank check, Dad. Neither is my silence. The morning sunlight hits my face as I step onto the porch. For the first time in years, I breathe freely, the invisible weight of their expectation and disappointment lifting from my shoulders. Some might call this vengeance. I call it reclamation. When someone has taken advantage of your trust for years, do they deserve mercy? Would you have demanded back payment of all stolen funds, or was reclaiming the future enough? The line between justice and vengeance blurs when those who should protect you become those who exploit you. I chose to take back tomorrow rather than demand yesterday, because some debts can never truly be repaid. The certified letter sits unopened on my kitchen counter for 3 hours. The return address, Blackwell and Associates, attorneys at law, tells me everything I need to know. My parents have decided to fight. When I finally slide my finger under the flap, the legal letterhead confirms what Attorney Hollis predicted. Our clients Gerald and Karen Morgan assert that verbal family agreements supersede the written will in question. I call Hollis immediately. Her voice carries the calm assurance I've come to rely on these past weeks. They're grasping at straws, Marissa. Your grandfather protected you better than they know. The next morning, I meet her at her wood-paneled office. Hollis pulls out a slim silver recorder from her desk drawer. Alvin insisted we record this statement alongside his will signing. Said he knew exactly what might happen. She presses play, and my throat tightens at the sound of my grandfather's voice gravel in warmth, exactly as I remember. This is Alvin Morgan, sound of mind and body. I'm leaving my Southbridge property to my granddaughter Marissa Eleanor Morgan, with full knowledge that my daughter Karen and her husband Gerald may attempt to override my wishes. My granddaughter deserves security that her parents cannot compromise. Any verbal agreements they claim existed should be considered null and void. His voice wavers slightly before continuing. I've watched them favor my younger granddaughter while Marissa worked herself to exhaustion. This property is my attempt to balance what should never have been unbalanced. I press my fingers against my lips, holding back unexpected tears. We have this, Hollis says, clicking off the recorder. Your grandfather knew exactly who they were. 3 days later, I drive past my father's office building on my way to meet the tenants. His silver Lexus is gone, replaced by a modest Honda. Through the street-level window, I glimpse him at a desk, phone pressed to his ear, shoulders hunched, cold calling former clients for consultant work. At Nordstrom, my mother arranges scarves on a display table, her hands moving with unfamiliar efficiency. The store manager hovers nearby, pointing toward a rack that needs straightening. Karen Morgan now works part-time at the boutique where she once dropped thousands on weekend shopping sprees. I don't stop at either place. There's a strange absence of satisfaction in seeing their downfall. At the local coffee shop, I spot Brielle's flyer taped beside the register. Support local artists' journey, with a QR code into a GoFundMe page. The barista tells me she's moved back home after studio funding issues. Later that night, I check the campaign $83 raised of a $15,000 goal. Before I can stop myself, I donate $2 anonymously, under my ex-boyfriend Tyler's name. Mrs. Chambers meets me at the property with a plate of snickerdoodles, just like she used to bring my grandfather. I can't tell you how relieved I am, she says, inviting me into her ground floor apartment. Your father raised rent twice last year, but wouldn't fix my leaky faucet. Said it wasn't in the budget. I run my fingers along water stains on her ceiling, the loose cabinet hinges, the drafty window sealed with plastic sheeting. The other tenants share similar stories: consistent rent increases, minimal repairs. I'm keeping your rental rates as they are, I tell Mrs. Chambers before leaving. But I'm starting renovations next week, beginning with your bathroom. She presses her weathered hand against mine. Your grandfather would be proud. I notice she doesn't mention my parents. The letter arrives on cream stationery, my mother's familiar handwriting flowing across the envelope. I brew coffee before opening it, steeling myself. Marissa, we didn't know how much the property meant to you. Perhaps we misunderstood Dad's intentions. Maybe we can start over as a family. It's time to put this unfortunate situation behind us. No apology, no acknowledgement. Just vague implications that I'm the unreasonable one for wanting what's legally mine. I place the letter in my desk drawer without responding. They've had my silence for years. Now it's my turn to give it back. I almost miss her at Lowe's. I'm comparing paint samples when my mother appears at the end of the aisle, a basket of gardening supplies hanging from her arm. She looks smaller somehow, her designer clothes replaced by jeans and a plain sweater. Marissa. I nod, returning to my paint chips. Please, she says, her voice cracking. You've made your point. Can't we be a family again? I place the samples back in their slots, turning to face her fully. Her eyes are rimmed with red, her hands twisting the basket handle. We were never a family, I say quietly. You were just people I happened to be related to. Karen flinches as if I'd slapped her. For a moment, I see something genuine in her expression. Not the loss of money or status, but the first glimmer of understanding what they've truly forfeited. I didn't, she begins. Have a nice day, Karen. I leave her standing there, surrounded by possibilities in every color, except the ones we might have shared. Some bridges weren't built to last. Some were never really built at all. I drag the roller up the living room wall, watching seafoam green replace dingy beige. 3 coats today, my shoulders aching with the effort. But Grandpa Alvin would have approved of this shade. He once told me green brings life into old bones. That color suits this place, Mrs. Chambers says from her perch on my stepladder. At 78, she's outlasted 2 husbands and refuses to move despite my offer to help with relocation costs. Your grandfather knew what he was doing when he built these walls. Sunlight streams through the new bay windows I installed last week, twice the size of the originals. The light catches dust motes dancing in the air, illuminating corners that have been dark for decades. He'd love what you're doing, Mrs. Chambers continues, her arthritis-twisted fingers wrapped around a mug of tea. Especially those windows. Alvin always said a house should breathe with whoever lives in it. I dip the roller, squeezing excess paint against the tray. Did he ever mention why he left this place to me specifically? Mrs. Chambers snorts. Because you were the only one who helped him replace the gutters when you were 12 while your sister complained about breaking her nails. In the backyard, spring bulbs pushed through the soil where Grandpa and I once planted vegetables. He'd guide my small hands, showing me how to test the earth's readiness. Patience, he'd say, is what separates builders from destroyers. The garden sits half-finished, like everything else in this house. One room painted, another gutted, new windows in front, old ones in back. A house in transition, just like its owner. I find it while replacing the loose floorboard in the home office wall safe hidden behind a cheap print of a sailing ship. The combination takes 3 tries. Grandpa's birthday, then mine, then the year he bought this house. Inside sits a cream-colored envelope, my name written in his careful block letters. My fingers tremble as I break the seal, unfolding paper that smells faintly of his pipe tobacco. Marissa, if you're reading this, you've finally discovered what was yours all along. I'm sorry I didn't tell you directly about this house. Your parents convinced me it would be better as a surprise when you were ready. I suspect now their definition of readiness might never have arrived. I gave you this house because you build homes wherever you go. Not just with hammers and nails, but with how you make people feel welcome, safe, seen. Remember when you were 8 and helped me replace these floorboards? You insisted on measuring twice because people will walk here every day, Grandpa. That's when I knew. Tucked inside the letter is a faded photograph. Me, at 8, gap-toothed grin, holding a level against a door frame while Grandpa kneels beside me. My legs give out. I sink to the newly finished hardwood, letter clutched against my chest. Someone had seen me, all along. 2 weeks later, I drive past my parents' house by accident. Dad's Lexus is gone, replaced by a used sedan. Mom waters wilting hydrangeas in yesterday's clothes. Through the window, I glimpse Brielle arguing with someone on her phone, desperation written across her face. I don't slow down. To homes built on honesty, not obligation, Margaret Hollis raises her glass, silver hair gleaming in the light of my new dining room chandelier. Around my table sit the people who carried me through. Jackson from work, who helped install cabinetry on weekends. Elaine, who organized my legal paperwork while feeding me soup when I couldn't eat. Mrs. Winters from next door, who checks on me daily with fresh muffins and no questions. Mrs. Chambers, who shares stories about Grandpa that make me laugh until I cry. After dinner, we gather on the porch. Someone suggests a photo, and we arrange ourselves against the newly painted railing. The self-timer clicks, capturing genuine smiles. Later, I place the framed photo above my fireplace. The porch swing Grandpa's favorite spot creaks gently as I rock back and forth. Keys dangle from my fingers, catching the sunset's glow. The weight I've carried since Christmas feels lighter here, breathable. Behind me stands my house. My inheritance. Not just wood and plaster, but the recognition that I was worth something all along. Thank you for seeing me when no one else did, I whisper to the evening air. The wind rustles through new leaves on the maple Grandpa planted the year I was born. Its branches stronger now, reaching higher. I used to think that real love, was something you earned. That if I was good enough, quiet enough, independent enough, they'd notice. But real love doesn't make you disappear. Real love doesn't come with conditions. They gave me nothing, so I gave myself everything. Some family portraits don't need other people in them to be complete. The porch swing sways in perfect cadence with my breathing, as if the house itself inhales and exhales with me. For the first time in 29 years, I am exactly where I belong.